Hello and thank you for tuning into Stampscaping 101. This is a dedicated video for the stamp design Rocky Peaks number 188F. I do go into the usage of the smaller version of it too, a little bit, but for the most part I'm working around the larger version. The smaller version can be used just as the larger version, but it's just a much smaller version of it. It kind of represents something a little bit more distant. So anyways, I hope this helps you out if you happen to have this stamp and you're looking for some ideas on how to use it. Okay, welcome to Stampscaping 101. This is another video in the design series usage. Okay, we're featuring the Rocky Peaks image right here. It is number 188F, and this is the smaller version, Rocky Peaks Small, number 211C. Alright, now the Rocky Peaks is a really good image to use as backgrounds for really any type of composition that you'd like to be depicting. It can be used individually as just a mountain peak, but I will show you the different ways it can be used. Okay, now it's roughly about 2 inches by 4.5. It's a little bit smaller than that. That's the size of the wood mount that it used to, that it's mounted on if you order it in a wood-mounted version. And it roughly covers the space of one card-sized piece of paper. Quarter-sized piece of paper, 4 1/4 by 5.5. Okay. But, okay, so that goes about the width of that, okay? But let's do something. Let me show you how this blends first, okay? Let's say I'm doing a mountain ridge. There it is, just one impression of it, okay? Now, like all of these Stampscapes stamps, they have been designed to be able to blend in with themselves, okay? So I can just go like that, and that peak just blends right on into this version. There's that peak right there over here. But if you choose to, on a design like this, if you want to do a much larger ridge line, okay, I can just take this and go right over the top of my other peak, and we can, suddenly create these background peaks, and you can just keep building on and on. You overlap a good, 1/4 inch to about 1/2 inch into your previous impressions. And in doing so, you really don't have to create extra masks, if you don't want to. You can just kind of blend it right in like that. And it doesn't look, if I look really carefully, I can see where it has merged in with the other stamp. But it blends in so well, it doesn't make for an obtrusive type of look to it, okay? I can build up like that. It can be as high as you want it to go. Maybe this is, 14,000 feet. You can do a couple layers like that, and suddenly you're at, Mount Everest levels, 40,000 feet instead of 14,000 feet, okay? All right. So that being said, we have something like that. You can also use it as a background stamp for other types of imagery, okay? Let's take a look at that. I'm inking up a little bit more because my black ink, I think, is getting a little dry. I need to re-ink that, okay? This is the cabin stamp right here. It's the kind of cabin. There's this cabin. This one's the cabin large, actually. Okay. Stamp that out like so. Now, let's put a background mountain in there. Let's create a little bit of depth. Okay, now just as I stamped right over the previous impressions of that mountain there, the previous impressions of mountains with each subsequent mountain, I'm going to overlap right on into my trees, okay? how high you want it to go just depends on how much sky you want to retain on your card, okay? So here's the top of my card right here. And now suddenly we have a background mountain in there, okay? Alright, now we can also fill in with some additional grass textures down here, but I won't spend too much time on something like that. This one's really about the mountain, okay? Or the rocky peaks in this case. But that's how you do a complete setting right here. We can have extra foreground and such, and clouds in the background if we want to. But let's take a look at some other types of scenes where you would have this in here, and I'll show you some different tweaks, okay, to kind of refine your use of those rocky peaks. Let's try this meadow right here. And I will reiterate what I was mentioning as far as the overlapping aspect of the design. Okay, this is the meadow large. Okay. Let's do this one on a landscape format. Okay, just so I can do a little bit more overlapping. Okay, there's the meadow. Let's overlap another impression of it into our scene. Okay. See, I'm going a good, I don't know, maybe ½ inch. Okay. And let's see, let's grab that Rocky Peak stamp. Now I could have an isolated impression of this mountain right here, the Rocky Peaks, or I could have it over here, you can have it over here, but let's just fill in that entire composition with it. Alright, now see this? I'm aiming the bottom of this Rocky Peak stamp right in this tree line here, okay? The trees are solid, so I don't need to mask any of them out. And again, that's the way that the series has been designed, so you don't have to worry about kind of little tedious little aspects of composition like that. You can just kind of stamp it right on in there, and overlapping helps to make it into a nice seamless scene, okay? If you want to add some additional texture, you can use things like the Sedge filler stamp that I just used on this one down here, okay? Alright, now that's ready to color in with whatever media you want. Media of your choice, but there it is. Done in 3 different impressions. I could have done it in 2 impressions if I kind of stamped that one over this way and it ended right here. Then I would just use that section and stamp it over there. You can also build it up. Let's say you wanted some background mountains in here. Okay, let's say I wanted some more distant mountains. I could use the same one. Let's do it. Let's do it both ways here. Okay, I want some more distant ones here. Let's use this stamp, okay, to create a little bit more distance. I'll show you something that you can do here. Now, this pad is really juicy because I just inked it up, but what I can do is I can take this stamp and get myself one impression right here on my blotter paper, and with the second impression, okay, what I'll do is I'll just come right on in here and we'll see if this is a lighter version of it. It's slightly lighter, so it kind of recedes a little bit into the distance. Let's ink it up again. Well, let's use the other side, which is this side of it, because it'll go down like that. I'll blot this off. Good. I'll try to blot off a little bit more than the previous one. Okay, and we have that. So see how it's a little bit lighter in the distance? Okay, makes for a little bit more of a full, whatever, ridge line, I guess. All right, now I went for kind of a more of a grayscale impression with these two right here. Okay, it's slightly lighter than this real black one. Could have went even lighter, but let's take a look at this smaller version right here. I could stamp this out in black in the distance like that. Let's try gray and see what that looks like. Okay, this is just using the smaller one. Maybe the smaller one represents something much farther back in the distance. Could be, you know, 20 miles away or something like that. "20 miles away from these foreground mountains," but you can see what that does right there. It creates a lot of depth within the scene. Okay. All right. Let's continue on here. Let's take a look at some different examples. Oh, let's see. Oh, here we go. Here's my Lakeside Cove stamp. All of the names of all of these stamps will be in the notes section. You can just click on the show more. All right, let's see where I actually can put this one. Let me go a little bit higher up in the composition. If you want more sky, stamp it lower. If you want more water, stamp it higher. So let's play around with something here, okay? This is a lakeside scene with reflections in the water, which is what makes this into a lake, okay? Let's take our rocky peaks now. And I tell you what, let's go with black again. But I tell you what, let's go for that lighter impression of black. Let's stamp it out once. And here's a little tweak that I do sometimes. If I have the bottom of this mountain going into things like trees right here, okay, you can see what that looks like. It looks okay as is, but one of the things I like to do is about a ½ inch up, or maybe it's even an inch, okay? I'm wiping off a good portion of this ink right here, okay? Don't take off all of it. What we want to do is we just want to make it a little bit drier, okay? Now this is already dry because I already stamped it once, so it's knocked off a lot of ink, but then I'm taking this and I'm transitioning this up from, you know, fairly dry down here to a little bit less moist up here, okay? Well, let's see what that looks like, okay? Hopefully it makes for kind of a drier and thus lighter impression of this mountain, okay? So we can vary the amount of ink that's on there. So see that? Transitions from a little bit wetter to a little bit lighter and drier down here. Now let's do something right here. Let's have a little bit of fun, okay? Let's take this and really blot this off pretty good now. Now this is the third impression of it. I'm kind of lining up that peak right there. It's not exactly in the middle because this is slightly off center, so I'll kind of line it up like so. I'm just eyeballing it. I'm not into, it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? So we have something like that, okay? So it's a lighter version of that. It makes for like a mirrored image. And let's see, let's put a couple things in the foreground for this composition. You can call your scene that you do here, you know, mirrored lake or something like that. It's not a perfectly mirrored lake because I just take that and flip it around. That peak right there is really that one over there, but by the time you run in some different colors into this, you know, it's not really going to matter. I don't think, unless someone's really particular and says, oh, wait a minute, that's not, you know, exactly the mirrored image. What you do is you just tell them, you know what, I didn't care about that. It's mirrored enough. Okay? So there's my ledge right there in the foreground. And this is kind of a fun way to get, you know, like two different images into a scene where you're working with reflections. Okay, now let's see here. Just a simple foreground here with my reed stamp. This is Reed's large, okay? So putting this down here kind of separates it a little bit and says that this is, you know, up and down. Sometimes in reflections you can't tell which way is up and really which way is down, okay? We do have the reflections down here, but putting this in the foreground, put a little canoeist or something like that in there, and you're ready to go. Okay, let's take a look at another aspect to this. All right, now, one of the things that you can do is something like this. Oftentimes, your ridgeline meets the sky because it's the highest point in the land elements within a scene, okay? So let's take a little mask that I have cut out. A lot of times I just rip a paper towel and I just stamp right over it, but if you want to be a little bit extra careful, just make one impression onto a piece of paper like this, cut it out, and then you can use this mask over and over again, okay? But let's do something right here. Let's take this cloud stamp. Ink it up in a light blue of some sort, okay? It's not like a navy blue, it's like a fairly light, I don't know, this one's like a cornflower blue or something like that, but it's called salvia blue. It doesn't have to be that, you know, exact color. What I can do is I can go in here with this, and just like I overlapped my impressions with the mountain, I can do the same thing here. Okay, with the cloud. I'm overlapping about a ½ inch into my previous impression, okay? Like so. And we have our cloud set there. And then what I can do is I can come in here and add some extra blue tone to that, which will make these clouds look like they're really illuminated. Alright? Now, that being said, even if you don't have a mask on those mountains back there, chances are you're going to color those mountains some kind of color, right? Grays, browns, whatever you want to do. I mean, I could just come right over the top of them with, you know, a sky element such as this cloud right here. And I do get some of the blue in here, but, you know, it doesn't look out of place to have some colors of your sky reflecting in the mountains. In this case, it's the color blue. If I look real closely, yes, there is some blue in there, but does it look bad? You know, to me it doesn't at all. Okay? Oh, here's another thing you can do here. Let's say you want to represent elevation in a scene, okay? Let's do... Well, let me just show you without anything else, okay? Alright. We can place our clouds down below. You can stamp out the clouds in black or anything like that too, okay? It doesn't have to be blue. Alright. Let's take our Rocky Peak stamp, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to wipe off the bottom pretty good. Okay, see I'm taking off quite a bit. Blend that in a little bit, you know, so it's not so sharp of a removal of ink. Alright, we have our clouds right here. We're going to try and make it look as if the Rocky Peaks are rising out of the clouds, or above the clouds actually. Okay, I'm going to have some of the clouds showing, so under mask a little bit. Take this and stamp it like so. And what you really do with this is, you know, you're saying that that peak is really high in elevation because it is actually over the clouds, right? Now what I like to do too is when I'm doing something like that, what I like to do is, let's cover that up right there. Well, I like to sandwich this image. And let's undermask a little bit more. Okay. I like to sandwich my mountain like that. I think it makes it kind of interesting to have it in there. It's coming from out of the clouds, and those are some background clouds. So this is kind of the midground, even though it's way in the distance. Alright, now let's play around with that a little bit. Let's try the Watermill here. As I'm doing these compositions, I'm really getting the itch to finish them off instead of just doing these stamp sketches of it, but I can always finish them off in a later video. Alright, this is the Watermill. Let's play around with that kind of idea of distant elevation. Okay. Alright, now I have the clouds, mountains, and maybe some extra clouds, so I'm going to stamp this fairly low on my horizon here, because I have to leave room up there for sky. A lot of surface area to the stamp, so I'm stamping left, right, left, middle, right, and top and bottom, okay? Nice flat impression of it, okay? So don't rock your stamp like that, okay? Alright, now let's build up some of that cloud line behind this mill. I'm just going to cover up the mill portion of it because it is light, okay? I don't need to cover up any of the trees at all. Let's go with our clouds back there. Okay, I'm leaving room for my rocky peaks still. Okay, so we have that. And let's do that technique with the peaks. We have rising out of the clouds. Okay, I tell you what, let's make this look a little bit farther back in the distance. Let's do a blotting of that. Okay, one impression. Let's take our paper towel and kind of wipe off the bottom portion of it about an inch of a way. That's about half the way, but I'm removing more off the bottom than I am in the middle portion of it, okay? Alright, so something like that. In terms of the removal, just take a ripped paper towel, mask off some of those clouds, kind of under-mask it a little bit so that you don't have this big gap in between your mask and the image, where the image starts. Take this like so, go on into here, going down into those clouds a little bit, maybe onto the mask. Okay, we have the rocky peaks rising from out of the clouds. This is at the base of it. Makes it look, to me, fairly majestic. In terms of a setting, when you have something kind of rising out like that, it tells us immediately that there is some distance and there's elevation in this setting here. And let's do something again. Let's do that little slight sandwiching. Maybe I'll sandwich it a little bit less. Maybe I'll have some of the clouds back here like so. Okay, a little bit lower. Okay. Let's undermask a little bit more. Okay, so we have those clouds back there, and we're going to fill in here with some additional tone, okay? It makes for a nice grand setting like that, in terms of all of that distance in here, so. Alright. Do that. Let's try one more composition. I was thinking about this scene that could be, I don't know where it would be or where it would represent. But let's do this. You see this kind of rocky peaks coming out from, I don't know, behind these meadowy types of things with trees or something like that in the foreground, but let's just do it where there is no tree line, okay? And let's do it around the Seaside Cove small stamp. It just has a kind of a straight horizon right there. Alright, I have this little stamp up here that's to provide a little bit of a coverage, so I don't, this is tack and peel right here, and this part is really tacky, so if I stamp this out and I rock it slightly, my paper is going to stick to that, so I just put this one right here. This is dry. Okay, let's see here. Let's go about like so. Okay, there's my Seaside Cove there. You can see how sticky tack and peel is. It wasn't sticky, but then I just, it became less sticky, but I just washed it off recently, as you're supposed to do with tack and peel, and it's super, super sticky again. I guess tacky, I should say. This is tack and peel. Okay, let's see. Where is my peak stamp again? Okay. Maybe look kind of majestic. Maybe this is in Washington or something like that, and the Cascades or something like that in the distance. I don't know. Could be, I don't know, somewhere in Alaska or Antarctic, I don't know. Or in a different country altogether. Alright, let's do that thing. We're going to blot off the bottom like this. Okay. Create a nice transition. With something like the Seaside Cove, we have that straight line there. It's the easiest mask in the world to do. We're just going to fold up a piece of paper, fold it over like so. I don't know if I'm even going to come down into this. I'm not really sure. Let's see. Yeah, maybe I might be coming down into it slightly, but let's go a little bit off center, about like that. You know, I'm talking about off center with that highest peak being kind of towards 1/3 of the page, like so. And we have that space over here. Okay, and blot off the bottom of it like this. Okay. Making sure I inked up enough of it. Okay, and we have our distant peaks. Put some clouds behind that maybe, or maybe it's a nighttime sky or something like that. But anyways, you can put some different clouds or whatever, any type of sky formation. Could be a sun peeking out from behind those clouds would be interesting. Or you can do, kind of make it a little bit more whimsical with these, you know, stars shining over the waterscape. Anyway, alright, so that is the Rocky Peaks stamp. Let's take a look at some of these different compositions here. Let's see. Zoom out a little bit. I've done a lot of stamp sketches here. It's always my kind of dream to one day have examples of every one of the stamps in the Stampscapes line in kind of a video format. Alright, now all of these, keep in mind, are not finished off with some additional inks, but that is how you would do it. And you can see, I mean, even if I kind of put all these different ridge lines next to each other, you can see how they kind of all blend in with one another. You know, you can see you can create quite a large mountain system. You know, you can create it as far as you want it to go, in theory. I mean, you know, I'm just talking about the mountain portion of this. Okay, so anyways, that is that. It's a fun stamp to use. It blends beautifully. You never know how a stamp is going to work. I have a pretty good idea, you know, from designing so many designs over the years, but you can't really tell exactly until you get it back and you make a few impressions, and this is one of the really easy ones to blend in with one another. It's like one of the top blenders. The other ones are good. This one is great in terms of the blending aspect of it. So while you can do some masking, like this, you know, with that mask, you can really just overlap, you know, a good ½ inch to a ¼ inch too, and not even worry about that. You know, if I was going to do some masking, it's probably because I wanted to, you know, like a hard, definitive separation between the colors that I color my sky with or something like that, and the colors that I've applied onto the mountain, just like this one right here. This is a scene that I did yesterday, and we have a lot of blue up here, and we have the peaks capped with a little bit of snow, and that is where the masking came into play. So I masked it like this to add that snow to the peaks, and to get that real definitive separation between the mountains and the colors in the background, I used the positive mask like that, and then sponged in my blues in the background like that. So all fun stuff. A lot of variation you can get out of that stamp, and it provides a nice, distant, kind of majestic visual for your scenes. Okay, anyways, thanks for watching. Hope that helps you out with the Rocky Peaks stamp.